Hey guys, it's the end of an era tomorrow. Mack Brown's going to be coaching his final game for the Texas Longhorns. It's been a long, storied career, including a title for him when Vince Young was able to lead them past USC. But it's finally come to an end as Mack Brown's going to step down after his game tomorrow. The game I'm talking about is the Valero Alamo Bowl, which features Texas as a basically home team, but playing as big underdogs against the Oregon Ducks. I'm going to start this off by talking about Oregon. These guys were supposed to be championship contenders. They were supposed to go undefeated. The kind of stuff that's been told about them the last like 3 or 4 years. But once again, they kind of choked down the stretch. They started off the year with 8 straight wins, rattle them off like everybody thought they would against Nicholls State, Virginia. They destroyed Tennessee 59-14, beat up on Cal, ran all over Colorado. I mean, these games weren't even close. 45-24 domination at then 16th ranked Washington. Beat Washington State 62-38. They ran over UCLA, who was 12th in the nation, 42-14, and they looked good. And then after that, they had to play at Stanford, who was fifth in the nation. And if anybody remembers, Stanford was the one who ended their title run last year, so they took this game personal. But they didn't show up. They were down huge late, and on two very late touchdowns in the last like half of the fourth quarter, were able to get them close, and like the score looked better than the game was, but they still lost 26-20 to the Cardinal. And that really ended any of their national title hopes. But they were still hoping to get the Pac-12, as Stanford had already lost one game to Utah, and Stanford dropped another game after Oregon beat Utah 44-21 to put Oregon back on top in their end of the Pac-12. And they thought they were going to have a shot at the bowl game, or at the championship for the conference at that point. They thought they were going to the Rose Bowl again, to the point where D'Anthony Thomas, if I recall, was making fun of the Rose Bowl, saying that it wasn't what they wanted, basically saying they were settling for it. He got cocky, and it blew up in their face. They went to Arizona in the next to last week of the season, and Arizona dominated them. 42-16 beatdown, the worst Oregon's seen in years, really. It was kind of funny, honestly, after that kind of cockiness. I didn't feel too bad for them, but it really kind of brought their season down, kind of took them out of everything they thought they were going to be in. They didn't make the conference championship game. They didn't make the Rose Bowl. They're in this, and this is considered a downgrade for them at this point. It's really, I mean, they're just looking to win this to save face and build momentum for next year. And they almost lost their last game coming into this. Oregon State, their rivalry game, it came down to the wire, and Oregon was able to pull out the victory by 1 point, 36-35. It was very close. Oregon fans were sweating it, but they won it, and they bumped them back up to 10th in the nation, at least. So, but these guys, they put up a lot of yardage. If you've watched Oregon, you know their game plan is just to be as quick as possible, run the next play before their opponents can blink. And they were 20th in the nation passing with 294 yards a game, with Marcus Mariota, who's coming back next year and was an early on Heisman candidate this year. The guy's just a monster. He threw 30 touchdowns and 3,400 yards. They run really well with pretty much anybody on the field. Every running back's quick. Mariota can run. I mean, these guys just run all over people. And they were ninth in the nation running the ball with 278 yards a game. They put up 46 points a game, third in the nation, and actually only gave up 21 a game, which is 24th in the nation. Really, they've had some games that were shootouts, and their defense gave up more points because they were on the field so much with that offense being that quick. But in most games, they were able to really buckle down, and that defense isn't bad. But anyway, that's enough about them. Let's talk about Mack Brown's team at Texas, the Longhorns, one of the biggest, most storied fan bases in college football out in the Big 12, and they laid an egg early on. They beat New Mexico State 56-7, and they were ranked inside the top 20. But they lost two straight to BYU 40-21, and then to Ole Miss, who was 25th at the time, 44-23. And a lot of people were wondering if Mack Brown was even going to make it to the midway point of the season at this point. They thought he was going to get fired. ESPN was covering this every day. It was crazy. But after this, the team, it's like the team wanted it for them. They buckled down. They played hard. And they were able to rattle off like 6 straight wins against K-State, Iowa State, 12th ranked Oklahoma and 36-20 win over them. TCU, Kansas, and West Virginia 47-40 in overtime. It had Texas really had them hoping for a shot at the conference title game at this point because their two losses were both non-conference. They were really looking good and hoping for it, but they kind of came crashing back down to reality at the end of the season. They lost two of their last three. They lost at home against Oklahoma State, 38-13. They were able to beat Texas Tech 41-16, but then they lost at an opponent who's very similar to Oregon, Baylor, 30-10. And this left them finishing off 8-4, 7-2 in the conference. Not looking bad, but they just look a little off. Case McCoy playing for them for a good portion of the year, had 1,885 yards and 11 touchdowns. They threw for 225 yards a game, which is actually 73rd in the nation, not great at all. They ran for 197, which is 34th in the nation, not bad. Not as good as Oregon. Their offense is never going to try to beat Oregon's, but not bad. They played a really tough schedule, like a lot of other teams, so you really can't fault them too much for those kind of stats. They scored 31 points a game, and they gave up 25, which isn't bad. But they gave up a lot of points to some teams, like Oklahoma State and Ole Miss and BYU. BYU was kind of an anomaly. West Virginia scored a lot on them, and the Baylor 30-10 loss late in the year is what really scares me going into this game. Baylor plays a lot like Oregon. They were fast, very efficient, and their defense was stout. I think that's a lot what this game's going to turn out to be. Oregon's going to score quick. You can't stop them. What you can do is kind of contain them. I think Oregon's going to score a lot early on and probably run away with this one, honestly. Texas will fight back. They'll claw their way into it. But I think Oregon's just too fast, too good for Texas right now. I know this team wants to step up and win for Mack Brown. They're going to play their hearts out. But I just don't think they've got it in them right now to compete with this Oregon team, especially when Oregon's playing with a chip on their shoulder right now after the way they ended the year. I think Oregon's going to try to make a statement. I think they're going to put up a lot of points. I think the final score is honestly going to be something in the range of a 45-27 victory for Oregon, taking home the Valero Alamo Bowl. Now, if you guys agree with me or disagree, let me know in the comments. Feel free to like my video, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Either way, enjoy the game tomorrow, and good luck to Mack Brown as he goes into retirement or whatever he plans on doing with the rest of his life. It's been an honor watching them coach these last few years. Later, guys.